really, no matter what our goals are with the practice of meditation, whether the goal is to just be happier, whether the goal is to have a more powerful life, be more effective in the world, whether the goal is to realize ultimate reality and actually recognize absolute truth, no matter what the goal is with this practice, it's not enough to only meditate in isolation. And what I mean by that is sit down for 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour a day, and then get up and go about our lives and just only dedicate that 1 hour, that one period to the practice. We need to become, you could say, obsessive with this practice. It needs to integrate into all aspects of our lives. It's not enough. It's just not enough to sit down and concentrate our minds or drop into a really deep state and expect that to do the work for us. And this is certainly a part. It's absolutely necessary and wonderful and amazing that eventually we can get into a rhythm with the practice where it's extremely cathartic. It's rejuvenating. It's a resource that we have to feel better. Learning how to be with what is. Learning directly through our experience, training the mind, reorganizing perception through the practice to perceive this present moment as satisfying, as the satisfaction that underlies all craving and aversion, just the natural state of present moment reality, you could say. Recognizing this is a big deal. So I don't want to dismiss the value of just meditating, actually dedicating that one period per day to the practice and the significance of that. However, this point around it not being enough is critical to long-term success in the practice. Part of why I'm bringing this up is I just posted my video review of the Monastic Academy and why I am classifying it as a cult. My story with leaving. And you have to wonder, how is it possible that, we are meditating we're dedicating significant amounts of periods per day to practice. I mean, we would on average be doing some kind of mindfulness-based practice 6 hours per day on non-retreat days. And then during retreats, the intention is 24-hour mindfulness nonstop all day for a whole week, including sleep. Somehow, even in deep, dreamless sleep, the expectation is to continue the practice. How is it possible then that you have an environment that's, at least on the surface, set up, constructed, created in such a way as to facilitate deep, nonstop practice? And this is why monasteries exist. So how is it possible that you have an environment like that, where you are constantly practicing, and yet there is still this self-deception going on, this collective survival, this collective self-deception, this collective lying? How is that possible? You'd think that the practice, meditation, would prevent something like that from happening. I do share in the story that, at least I think I do, it was meditation that helped put all of the self-deception mechanisms that Maple was participating in and unconsciously creating. Meditation was in fact the tool that I personally used to see all of this. But why did it take so long? And why is it, if we just set my story aside, why is it that we hear so many stories about these enlightened gurus abusing their students? There are so many sexual scandals out there in the world, or just teachers behaving with misconduct. These deep practitioners, you hear these stories about these gurus. You go into their presence and suddenly their presence is filling the room. You're set into a state of joy, happiness, love, compassion, just by being in their presence. It's almost like their energy field, their transmission, their mind is somehow just doing the work for us, dropping us into peace, stillness, clarity. You hear about these stories, about these masters, these hardcore meditation masters, being able to transmit this kind of field for their students and then nonetheless behaving with misconduct. How is that possible? And I would suggest that it's because meditation is not enough. It is possible to cultivate very deep states of concentration, very deep states of peace and acceptance, even clarity, and still parts of the mind remain hidden from conscious awareness. There are still these uncognized, unconscious, you could call it, in Western psychology, shadows that remain hidden. It's not guaranteed that they will automatically bubble to the surface of awareness. And the evidence for that claim is just the misconduct that has been demonstrated by teachers across the centuries. Now, of course, you could argue that part of it is that you've got an Eastern culture meeting a Western culture with some of these gurus, and then what may be acceptable in Eastern cultures is not acceptable in Western cultures. But in my view, this is a coping mechanism to an extent. I mean, there's some validity in that perspective and argument, but it's not sufficient to explain this phenomena that I'm pointing to. It doesn't really tackle the point that if these masters are in fact so deep, legitimately deep with their practice, with their meditation, to the point that they're able to transmit powerfully to others through their mind, through their mindfulness, through their samadhi, through their deep state, then why is it the case that they're still acting in ways that are unskillful? Very deep inquiry. And it's important that we continue to engage with that question, not only for our own ability to recognize good teachers, good communities, whether spiritual or not, but also for the sake of our own practice, so that we don't end up that way, so that we're not caught in our own self-delusion, self-deception, our own lying. Okay, so meditation's not enough. How do you move forward with that? Well, one is, in fact, you do stay committed to a practice of meditation because it is indispensable. It is helpful. It's very difficult to bullshit, to lie to ourselves when you're an hour into your meditation practice and the body is starting to experience pain. There's difficulty, emotional difficulties that begin to arise as a result of the practice. It's hard to move through that without working through it. The only way to move through that is to work through it by this continual application of mindfulness. But more importantly, perhaps, is the integrity of our relational existence. And by relational existence, I just mean our relationships with other beings, with other people. That really is where the rubber meets the road when it comes to the practice of meditation and the process of awakening itself, the integration of awakening into all aspects of our lives. We have to really see clearly, how am I showing up in relationship with others? Am I lying to others? Am I able to have the difficult conversations? Am I able to give the difficult feedback that make me feel uncomfortable to say, but is the honest thing to say in the moment? Am I able to do that? Am I able to call someone else out when they're not behaving correctly, and you know that they're not behaving correctly? And conversely, am I able to receive feedback? When someone says something to me that rubs my ego the wrong way, how do I react to that? What is my response to that? Do I get defensive? Or am I open to it? Am I open to considering it? Am I open to allowing my own discernment and wisdom process to evaluate the quality of the feedback? Honestly, not through defensiveness, and also not through collapsing and just taking every source of feedback on. I was, funny story example of this point, around not collapsing and accepting just anyone's feedback. I was in a city recently, and there was this like market, kind of run down 24/7 convenience store. Might have not been 24/7, but one of those convenience stores that's open very late at night, and there's homelessness around it. It's kind of a sketchy part of town. And this man walked up to me, and he asked me, well, first he introduced himself. He said his name was Bible Bill. His name was Bible Bill, and he asked me if I believed in God. I was like, oh, being asked if I believed in God by Bible Bill in the streets of this city. And you never know where these kinds of conversations are going to go. I told him, yes, I believed in God. I highly doubt my views of God are the same as his. Well, I know they're not, because afterwards he gave me a fist bump and he's like, right on. Just so you know, I'm the second coming of Christ. That's what he told me. And I don't remember how I navigate the situation, but I just sort of agree, or, just kind of like, okay, that's cool, man. Like, whatever, have a good day. And I just sort of exit that space. Well, the reason I bring up Bible Bill is that's someone you don't want to take feedback from. I'm not particularly interested in receiving feedback from Bible Bill. It's not skillful or wholesome or safe or wise really to give all that much consideration to the possibility that Bible Bill is the second coming of Christ. I know this is an easy example. It's sort of an obvious example. But the point is, what I'm advocating for is not then to just take feedback from literally everyone. We actually have to use our discernment process to know what is wholesome feedback, what's good feedback, but then also use our discernment process to actually take in that feedback. Otherwise, you end up in mechanisms of self-deception, which is what I describe in detail with my latest video. When this kind of relational integrity begins to flow, you could say, throughout all of our relationships, all aspects of our lives, with beings, with the way that we are embodied, the way we move our bodies, the decisions we make, the choices we make, that is the indication of whether the practice is working, meditation. And when all of that is in alignment, the practice catches fire in a much more powerful way. Much more powerful. In Buddhism, there's a reason that right samadhi, which you could translate, there's an argument to be made that you could just translate that as right meditation, is only one of the aspects of the Eightfold Path. A single aspect. There's all of these other elements to the practice, the path, I should say, other than just formal practice. I just wanted to clarify that, given that I just made this pretty intense video about the cult dynamics, the self-deception dynamics that were taking place at the Monastic Academy, my time there. Perhaps I'll speak more about cults in the future, cult psychology, narcissistic spiritual teachers, which is very possible that you will run into if you're serious about this work. A lot of communities out there, a lot of retreats out there, a lot of teachers out there. a lot of narcissists out there. And like, how do you judge whether a teacher is good or not? It's not solely based on the depth or intensity of one's meditation practice. Felt important to clarify this point, especially because as I continue to make videos on this channel, they will be mostly about meditation and walking the path. This felt like a good transition between the last one and then everything else moving forward. Yeah, if you need help with your meditation practice, you can check out the guide that I have linked in the description or pinned comment. If you have any questions, you can use the contact form to let me know, reach out. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.